I'll start by saying, if you weren't aware, this award is in celebration of the much beloved and enormously missed Colossus of Doctor Who, and it's named in his honour to recognise those whose writing across screen, audio, book and magazine have contributed to and enhanced the worlds of Doctor Who, which is of course what Terrance did for many, many decades. Before Society Coordinator Paul Winter takes over, I'd like to pay my own personal tribute to Terrance. When I was in my early mid-teens, most Saturday mornings, I would hop on the 83 bus from Hanger Lane, back in the days before the gyratory system even existed, to W.H. Smith in Ealing Broadway, hoping to find the latest Target novelisation. Back then, the majority were written by Terrance, and I had great pleasure reading his take on Terror of the Autons alongside Shakespeare's Coriolanus, which I was studying for O-level English literature at the same time. Indeed, some of you may remember me discussing this with Stephen Burkoff 3 years ago. Needless to say, the Master and the Autons grabbed my attention far more than William's Final Tragedy. Indeed, if Shakespeare was the Bard of Avon, then Terrance was surely the Bard of Hampstead. The first time I actually met Terrance was at a Liverpool convention in the 1980s, with which I was involved. I quickly realised what a splendid raconteur he was, as well as being a marvellous writer. Over subsequent decades, I had the pleasure to meet Terrance on many more occasions. He was a great interviewee, whether working alone, as a double act, for example with Derek Sherwin, or a group panel such as Unit Special with Katie Manning and Richard Franklin, or alongside his great friends Barry Letts and Nick Courtney. Several years ago, Terrance was the first ever recipient of the Society's Outstanding Achievement Award. A fond memory from that event at Riverside Studios was Terrance sitting in the audience asking Wendy Padbury all sorts of questions while I was allegedly interviewing her. At one stage I might actually have suggested to Terrance that we should swap places. At the first Capitol in 2016, my wife was in charge of the green room. One of her rules, and trust me, you don't break Mrs. J's rules, was no alcohol whatsoever. Terrance walked in full of joy on the Saturday and asked if he could have a pint. Mrs. J duly informed him of her rules, whereby Terrance's face fell. Seeing him somewhat upset, I went over and asked what the matter was. "She won't let me have a pint," was his response. I had a quiet word with her indoors, explaining that Terrance was the exception to her rule, and quickly disappeared before bringing him back that much-deserved livener. The following year, John Culshaw was one of our guests at the Capitol too. John was very keen to have Terrance join him, and someone to really bounce off. This was agreed on the basis that Terrance would be a surprise, and we somehow managed to smuggle him firstly into the green room, and there's the TARDIS prop from which he would emerge. Just under 15 minutes into the panel, and on an agreed cue, John doing his impersonation saying, "Green, the colour of monsters is green," Terrance emerged, feigning exasperation to great delight, and the two of them proceeded to share the rest of a wonderful panel as a double act. I'm sure that many of you here have fond memories of watching that, but if you haven't seen it, the entire 50 minutes is on the Society's YouTube channel. In fact, there's also the panel from the previous year where the main focus was the ultimate adventure, this time with Charlie Hayes and Trevor Martin alongside Terrance. I'm sure you all have your own personal memories of Terrance. He was that sort of person. The professional wrestler Bret Hart used to describe himself as the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. Unlike the Hitman, Terrance was a modest soul, but I can think of no finer epithet to describe him. His wonderful and enduring legacy is assured. And now I'd like to invite Paul Winter, Society Coordinator, to read the citation.
Hello everybody. My first Doctor Who novel was Day of the Daleks. I was 5 years old and I think I devoured it in about 24 hours or so and never stopped reading them after that. So, the Terrance Award for Writers. So the Society considered a number of worthy candidates for this inaugural award, but ultimately came to the following decision. Our winner seemingly has Doctor Who running through his veins. As a child, he would accompany his father to the BBC television centre and sometimes watch the programme being recorded. He was also a child actor himself, most notably in the late 1970s when he played Dick in ITV's adaptations of The Famous Five. Can we get him? In the early 1980s, while still in his teens, he became the youngest ever editor of the Society's magazine, Celestial Toyroom. In 1992, he became editor of Doctor Who magazine, a post he held for 3 years. By that time he'd started writing novels for the Virgin New Adventures series, followed by the 8th Doctor range. He also adapted the script for the 1996 television movie for BBC Books. In 1998 he joined the then fledgling Big Finish Productions as editor of the range, and as well as writer and director. That was a post he held for some 8 years until Cardiff came a-calling. And becoming script editor across the massive output that was at that time emanating from Upper Boat. His credits include 21 editions of the Sarah Jane Adventures, 3 Torchwood stories, and Doctor Who specials including The Waters of Mars and The End of Time. A truly remarkable body of work. In 2011, having left BBC Wales, he briefly returned to Big Finish to produce the Bernie Summerfield and Gallifrey audios, before he moved to Australia and became the executive producer at the animation company Planet 55 Studios. Since returning to the UK in 2016, he's continued to work on numerous projects, including the animation of 5 missing Doctor Who stories. The Society believes that our winner's diverse range of credits over several decades perfectly reflects the spirit and the skill sets of the person after whom the award is named and dedicated. So it's with great pleasure that I announce the recipient of the inaugural Terrance Award for Writers is Gary Russell.
Thank you, family. I met Terrance for the first time in 1981. The very first convention I ever interviewed anyone at, and the first person I ever interviewed was Terrance. And that was brilliant because he put me at my ease and he was lovely, and we formed a friendship, and we saw each other a lot over the next few years, doing lots of conventions. We bumped into each other in America once, and he was somewhat bemused that suddenly I was at an American Doctor Who convention, and I thought, well, you're not bemused that you're at an American Doctor Who convention. I'm a fan. I followed you, Terrance, I said. I don't think he believed me, which is probably just as well. And then we worked together. We worked together while I was at Big Finish, and then when I was in Cardiff, we were doing the Sarah Jane Adventures, and Penguin Books came to us and said, we want to do novelisations. We didn't want to do novelisations of the Doctor Who stuff, but we wanted to do novelisations of Sarah Jane Adventures. And I said to Russell T. Davis, there's only one person. The one person we have to bring into 21st century Doctor Who right from the off was Terrance. So Terrance did our first Sarah Jane novelisation, and it just sort of, it made sense, both to Russell and myself. We just thought this brings the circle round. I don't think there's anyone who's ever written for Doctor Who in the last 15 to 20 years, and probably a long way before that, come back to, you know, when Paul and Rob and everyone were doing their stuff, and me particularly as well. We would all say we were taught to read, and we were taught to write by one man, and that man was Terrance. He was an inspiration to all of us, and I am so honoured, really honoured, to be the first person to get this award. So Tony, thank you for arranging it. It's very nice of you. That's great. Cheers. Paul, thank you for all the nice things you said. I don't think they're particularly true, but you know, it's very nice that you say
You
them.
can do your research.
And I just don't know what else to say to everyone except thank you. This is a phenomenal honour for me. I don't think I deserve it, but I'm going to take it and run. Thank you so very much. Thank you very much.
It sounds as if it's richly deserved.
Oh, thank you, Elsa. I really
all
appreciate
you've done.
that.
It's a great honour for the family to have this award in Terrance's name. And he would have been delighted to be here, of course, but to present it himself. And he would have been amazed. He was, as people know, quite modest in many ways, and he just loved Doctor Who. He loved coming to conventions, and he loved meeting all the fans. So well done, Gary.
Thank you.
I'm very
Thank
glad
you
it's you.
Thank you very much.